Okay, there we go. How about there? Let's see. Can you hear it?
Okay, Nadia.
Hello, General Inquiries. My name is David. How can I help you today?
Yeah. Hi, I need to change my address.
So I can choose down here, as you can see, ask for a SIN or explain security. Then I
Can I
choose.
get your SIN, please?
My what?
Your social insurance number.
That's private. Why should I give that to you?
Well, I need it to look up your account.
I'm only changing my address.
Yes, but in order to do that, I need to pull up your account.
It's 111-22211.
Thank you.
So you have the option whether to respond it's invalid or it's not invalid. If you do choose invalid, by the way, just let's check out what happens.
I'm afraid that's not a valid social insurance number. Could you double check the number, please?
Fine, let me get my wallet.
I've definitely been there, by the way.
111-22233.
Thank you.
And then you can choose to go on, as you guys can
I have
see,
your date
ask
of
for the
birth,
date of
please?
birth.
November 10th,
And then it's actually close enough, so I could say what
And
year.
what year was that?
1991.
So you know what's incredible, I could go on for ages, quite frankly, although the game comes to an end relatively soon, at least the first time I played it. But what was amazing is I could relate almost on both sides, because I always and often sometimes wonder, not often I should say, but sometimes wonder what it's like for the person on the other side of the phone, you know, when I'm actually calling for assistance or what have you. But, you know, when we talk about what you're doing here, essentially, I mean, you're telling a story, and in this case, you're telling your own personal story. Is it something that you think is different than other games? I mean, don't all games tell stories to a certain extent?
Yeah, I mean, every game, even games without like a word of text or really, you know, any sort of explicit narrative or dialogue, they still tell stories through their mechanics, through interactions that you have with them. You know, it's just a matter of what that story is telling and whether or not the developer meant to tell the story that the game is telling.
Right. Or which, or
I-
even which story. I mean, the reason I was asking is because, Steve, for example, with your game, you know, it's about learning, you know, someone's life and uncovering certain facts. I mean, it's interesting to me to try and understand how it's different, what makes it distinctive from the general kind of industry or general or other games in general.
Well, I think that with something like Gone Home, the thing about like the interactivity and how the story is told, I think, is that in a lot of games you see the story play out on screen, right? Like you see the characters going through actions and, you know, acting basically. But in Gone Home, really you are using your own agency as a player to explore this place and find little bits and pieces of these people's lives. And it's reconstructed in your head, you know, like you are essentially going through and putting this story back together like a puzzle as you play. And I think that kind of engagement and that requirement for the player to really, you know, figure out so much on their own by exploring and reading and finding these things makes it a uniquely engaging kind of story experience.
Most certainly. And anything to add, Will?
I mean, I think for me, one of the really common reactions I've gotten to my game is people saying to me, you know, when I was playing this, I didn't feel like this was just somebody I related to. I felt like this guy was me. You know, I tried to put it together in a way that was skillful enough that anyone would appreciate it, but I knew going through it that there are guys out there who live my exact kind of lifestyle and who this story and who these problems will not resonate metaphorically or kind of vaguely. It's going to resonate with them precisely. And I think these kinds of stories have a rare ability to do that compared to the kind of narratives that you might typically find.
Most certainly. And, you know, David, just quickly, before we move along and discuss, you know, the term itself and whether that's actually an issue, some people have, in fact, taken issue with it. It's important to note you lost your job as a result of this, and that's kind of, maybe intentionally or not, seems to be part of the game. I mean, manifested into the game.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my intention when I released the game, certainly, but, you know, I didn't go to the greatest lengths to hide my employer. You know, like I don't specifically refer to the fact that I worked for Canada Revenue Agency at the time with the game, but, you know, there's enough things there that people, unfortunately, eventually figured it out, and it was broken with mainstream media, and the game was presented as this online rant against taxpayers. My employers, you know, saw fitting to sort of enact the game's ending, essentially, and terminate me.
Ironic, but I mean, were you surprised? Were you shocked? What do you make of that?
I mean, I always knew there could be consequences. Part of the responsibility of being a public servant means that, your employer, the government essentially, does have some say about what you express publicly. And I took them out of that process. I didn't let them know, but I get this call every day. I didn't let them have the opportunity to approve it because I knew it was something that they wouldn't necessarily approve. Here I am characterizing a call center job that could be linked back to working at the Canada Revenue Agency as something that's not a positive experience. Mm-hmm. And, I knew that they would say no to that. I didn't want them to have the opportunity to prevent me from releasing something that I had worked so hard on.
Right.
So I knew that if it ever came out, that was going to come around and bite me. I didn't expect it would be so severe.
I'd imagine a risk worth taking. At least I hope you feel that way. I do want to get your quick reactions, actually, to how Anna Anthropy is actually kind of commenting on this term that we used. The term empathy games presupposes that these games are made by marginalized folks for privileged people. Any reaction to that? Why don't we come to you, Vander?
I think that it could sound a bit, but the reality is that the mainstream games we have right now, they are mainly about you becoming the aggressor, you attacking, you is power fantasies. And so suddenly in games like Paponjo and others, you are actually playing the the victim. And I think that she may find playing the victim kind of giving the victim role kind of negative. I don't find it negative. I think certainly it is a lot of mainstream movie in the drama category have become really successful talking about the victim and how they cope with a reality. So I find it that empathy games bring more to the medium than what it takes out of the developers, because in reality right now it is that we don't know how to classify this type of games. You have fighting games, shooting games, sport games, adventure games, and when a consumer is going to buy a game that they actually, I want to experience someone else's life, I want a drama. And there's no category.
Fair enough. I mean, Steve, when you hear what Vander's saying and, thinking of the term itself, empathy gaming rather, I mean, do you think it gives a false impression of what the games can do, what they can accomplish? What are your thoughts on what she had to say, saying that it's presupposed that these games are made by marginalized folks for privileged people?
I mean, I don't, so kind of like I said, I think that the place we're at right now is that there are a lot of different kinds of games. They're exploring a little different territory than games have traditionally. I don't know what we call those yet. The labels kind of come from the outside. But I personally feel like any piece of media, any piece of entertainment that you experience that is really worth anything helps you be a little bit more empathetic towards other people. Like when you read a novel, it gives you insight into the lives and the thinking and the experiences of these characters that you're encountering through this prose. And you walk away feeling like you know someone in a way that you didn't before, and it expands your understanding of other people. I mean, that's how empathy is built. And so I hope that, if the games that are kind of in this category can also lend that kind of experience to players, then that's a good thing no matter which way you put it.
And, with that in mind, I mean, it's interesting because I know that, a lot of people, and for example, Will, you consider yourself a writer, right? Not just a developer per se, or forgive me, not a developer, a game, someone who's creating games. Do you think that...
Yeah, primarily a writer for sure.
Yeah, I mean, do you think more writers will get more involved with gaming?
I mean, I think there are a lot of great people writing in games right now, but I think it's definitely a frontier that a lot of writers haven't explored yet. And one of the really cool things is that there are so many tools now for making games that we're seeing that are opening it up to people from other artistic disciplines. Something like Twine, for example, is a great example of how you're going to be able to get a lot of people who traditionally think of themselves as writers more into making games. So, yeah, the tools are going to light the way, and, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of really great writers getting into the game space, more so now than ever before. And
David, I would imagine you agree with that.
Definitely. I mean, I myself, I don't even have a computer science background. I have an English degree. Up until, a couple years ago, I considered myself a writer for the Enthusiast Press. So, I mean, the tools are definitely there. I'm one of the people who unfortunately went about it the hard way, started to teach myself to code. But, tools like Wine, Game Maker, RPG Maker, they're getting better and better all the time. Even Unity itself, which I kind of see as a more intermediate tool anyways, is expanding the horizons for folks who maybe never considered themselves capable of making a game in this place.
Well, David, I want to thank you for joining us. Vander as well. Steve, thanks and congratulations on that BAFTA award. And Will as well, there's a lot of comments. Sarita Teresa, maybe you inspired someone, by the way, saying, how about I Teach Middle School game? Just, like the call center game, I would imagine, inspired her there. And before we go, in all seriousness, we'd be remiss if we didn't say a word about Ryan Green and his game, That Dragon Cancer. Ryan developed a beautiful and heartfelt game about his little boy, Joel, and his battle with cancer. Joel died on Thursday morning. He was 5 years old. Prior to the news, we had actually reached out to Ryan because we wanted him to come on the show and talk That Dragon Cancer, which was so inspirational to so many people. So if you want to learn more about the game or Joel, you can check it all out. It's in our resource well. Lots of information there for you.